yes? Yes. I'm all right, thank you. Oh, good heavens. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, no, I think I was here, but I probably was having lunch with somebody. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Oh, yes. That's marvelous. Lovely. I will. I will. Goodbye. What were your daydreams as a child? My daydreams as a child were of being a grown-up, very worldly, very beautiful woman. Those were my only daydreams. I played games of make-believe with the little girls in the neighborhood and made to play in my daydreams. And I can remember that when another girl, a stranger, was brought into the game, she said, let Mr. Crisp be a fairy prince. And a girl who knew me said, oh, Quentin never plays the part of boys or men. And it crossed my mind that I didn't ever play the part of men. And the girl said, oh, well, I'll be a fairy prince then, because it didn't matter to her whether she played a male or female part. She didn't care because it was only a game. But to me it was more serious than a game, though I didn't know it. It was a justification of my view of myself. That was really the only surprising thing that I can remember that happened when I was young and living my perpetual daydream. I was always this beautiful creature, and I don't remember ever meeting men or them falling in love with me or kissing my hand or anything like that. So it wasn't as Mr. that strange journalist who had the operation, Jan Morris, said it was not a question of sex, it was a question of gender. I think it was one long daydream that I lived in up till at least the age of 11 or 12. I can remember my mother alternately tried to jolt me out of my dream and pandered to my being in it, because she bought me ballet shoes. And now I think this is remarkable, because I've never heard of a man wearing blocked toe shoes. But I remember I went to a dancing class, and I was the only person who had ballet shoes, and I walked up and down the room on my points. And I don't remember the mistresses stopping me, or laughing, or anything like that. So it's quite extraordinary that I did fulfill my dreams by sheer willpower, in spite of the world, in spite of everything. Because that was at a school when I was young enough to go to a school where there were boys and girls. And there I didn't play games. Oh yes, I remember they did play football and I refused to play. And I went out onto a field and they kicked the football at me. And I dodged it and never tried to kick it in any way or propel it anywhere. So yes, there was some penalty that I paid for my dream. But my mother must have given up and thought, well, that's the way it is. You see, when I was questioned about Dr. Watson in recent times and said that a woman had the right to abort the fetus if she knew it was going to be a homosexual child, and everyone flew into such a terrible rage, I was allowed to live in a homosexual dream. And now, of course, nobody would be allowed to do that. So they would be better off not being born, which I pointed out to my agent. But she never understood it. She thought that I was punishing homosexuals by saying they could be aborted, but I was rewarding them. They didn't have to be born. This terrible life that I've lived, walking against the stream all the time, insisting on my dream in spite of everybody, they would have been spared that. So if I had been born a woman, of course none of this would have happened, and I would have been happy. Well, I would have been so unhappy. Of course, when you're on the outside looking in, it always seems that on the inside people are happy and you're on the outside. And when I sat in a cafe in England called the As You Like It, and said that the people going by looked into the cafe and thought we were happy, and that they were really happier than we. A man said, they're out there wishing they could be in here. And of course they are, because you want whatever you don't have. If the operation had been available and cheap when I was less than 25, I would have had it, because then my life would have been simple. And I could have gone away and lived in Carlisle and run a wool shop, and no one would ever have known my terrible secret. I never understand why people who have the operation make themselves so conspicuous, so that they're as badly off as if it had never been. Because people don't look at them and say they're homosexual, but they look at them and say, he was really once a man. And then, of course, everything is different. You're peculiar. I wanted to be part of real life without altering my dream of my own reality. And now, at the age of 90, it's been explained to me that I am not really a homosexual. I'm a trans something or other. And of course, it's my view of myself, not my view of men. I don't see myself as a man. I know I'm not a woman, of course, that I know perfectly well. And I don't dress as a woman, and I don't conduct myself. I did know a man who worked as a waitress for at least 6 months, and changed into his uniform in a room where other women were changing, and was never detected. So that's pretty amazing, but I don't think I could if I think my body is too like a man's body. So that I don't think I could have lived as a woman with any kind of success. I think I would have been anxious. That's the only thing I really wanted. Only to be a woman. Well, I wouldn't do anything differently, because I was under compulsion to act as I did act. You see, people say, do you have any regrets? But you only have regrets if you have alternatives. If you can look back on your life and say, why did I marry that wretched woman? Why didn't I leave her and marry all those wonderful people over there? Or why did I stay in that job for so long? I could have left and got another one. But I had only the friends who could put up with the disgrace. I had the jobs from which I was not given the sack. I lived in the digs from which I was not evicted. So I didn't, looking back, have any alternatives, and so I don't regret anything. Well, the secret of looking young is, of course, never, never work. And this I really believe in. I was asked this question by Mr. Rose, and when I said never, never work, he laughed nervously, so I think it was the wrong answer. But of course it is work that makes you look old, not only because you had to get up at 7:30 every morning and leave the house by 8:30 and get to the office by 9:30, but also it's the look of resentment that settles onto your face, as you think, why do I have to work for them? And that makes you old. I've never worked in America at all. In America, you see, I didn't know until I got here, you can just do fame. It's what I call the profession of being. And that is how you earn a living. Chiefly you rely on the kindness of strangers. It's all your mother's fault. Your mother spent her life saying, well, you better earn because you'll be alone and people won't help you. Because people will help you. They want to help you. And you must look as helpless as you can. I was standing at a bus stop and a taxi drew up and said, get in, we'll take you as far as we go. And they were not going to charge me. And I got in. And a woman to whom I told the story said, they never do that to me. And I said, do you look helpless? And she said, no, of course I don't. Well, if you don't look helpless, how are you ever going to get help? And that I explained to people, but it does no good. You see, people are lonely. When the new towns were built in England, like Stevenage and Harlow, and they were built and put up in a few nights so that the families of workers in a factory which was there could live there. And all the women said, I'm terribly lonely. And I said, have they said to the people next door, I'm terribly lonely? And they said, no, of course I haven't. Well, you might get rejected by somebody who thinks, oh God, she's going to be on my doorstep forever. But not necessarily, because people next door are just as lonely as you are. And you can go and sit in the kitchen and have a cup of cocoa and not be lonely. You must say what your weaknesses are if they are to be helped. Well, I am lonely. If I sat in this room and was never invited out, my life in America would have been hardly any better than my life in England. But I've said that I like people. My number is in the phone book. And I said, if you don't have your number in the phone book, you'll get stuck with your friends. And people laugh and think this is what Americans call a one-liner. But it isn't. The only point of fame is that it increases your social horizons. And someone said, oh, it isn't the only thing. It's getting a good table in a restaurant. Well, I mean, I ask you, what rubbish that is. My meal was ruined. I had a bad table. I mean, I wouldn't know whether I was at a good or a bad table, and certainly I don't care. But I do know more people. The phone rings, I speak to them, I have a chat, I make jokes, they laugh, they ask me how I am. And if they say come out to lunch, I can go, and that makes an event. And that's what I like. My life is purely social now. I like people. They are my only pastime. Well, I suppose I am self-indulgent, but really only with time. I loll about all day and do nothing. I don't put myself together and do something useful, because I don't see any need to do it. But that is something which I experience all day of every day. There's nothing that I can say, oh, I wish I'd learned hand gliding or something weird like that, because I don't really want it. And I don't want to travel to places that, well, as I say, I can't speak the language or enjoy myself. I'm content with the life I have. Well, I live in one room, I live by myself, as I say, I never work, I never branch out. I live the life I know, which I feel will not land me in danger or embarrassment or disgrace. That's really my only standard. The way I live my life is probably very sinful to other people, since I'm not doing any good in the world. But I think my sin would be a sin of neglect. I don't do harm to other people, but I don't do any good. And I received a letter the other day saying, I understand you now. You're a lonely, embittered old queen, and you are interested in nothing that means anything to other people. Well, I didn't understand the word embittered, because I would have said I was less embittered than most people. But it's true, I'm not interested in the things that interest other people. I'm not interested in sport. I'm not interested in politics. I'm not interested in scandal. And I would say those were the three things that absorb other people. I like any food that is no trouble, that is more or less tasteless. And I could get in a cafe which Mr. Patrick called the Greek place. I think what you would call typical American food, a turkey sandwich, eggs and bacon, corned beef hash, which is a typical American meal. When I was young, someone always said in the middle of a film, I don't know if you think I'm always going to be a hash slinger. Well, I'd never seen anyone slinging hash, but apparently they did it. And the other thing was, people said, you're nothing but a soda jerk. How do you jerk soda? Well, I think it was those things that you went like that. But I don't much like soda, but I do like corned beef hash, whether it's slung or merely served. And they're very simple meals that don't demand that you make any. You have to accept the challenge. In Albuquerque, I nearly died of starvation because I couldn't eat the food. It was too hot. And they did cast about and find simple things for me to have. So I don't like vinegar, I don't like garlic, I don't like anything that makes a meal startling. I like ice cream, I like a little ice cream. After a bit my mouth freezes up and I don't like it. Simple flavors like vanilla, and I don't much like chocolate. And I don't know why I've suddenly become averse to chocolate. Because when I was young, I would eat a whole box of chocolates in the course of an afternoon. But now I couldn't do it. And I eat them, but I don't hanker for them, and I don't, as I say, eat a whole box of candies in an hour, which I used to do. No, I've never bothered about my weight. I don't know whether other people have looked at me and thought, oh, he's getting fat, or he's getting thin. Because in England, your weight is not a problem. It's only a problem in America. Someone said to Mastroianni when he arrived here from Italy, "You've lost weight." And he said, "You Americans are obsessed with the loss of weight." And the greatest compliment you can pay an American is to say, "You look marvelous. Surely you've lost weight." And a woman I know who was quite definitely fat said that people walked past her and said, "Lose weight." Strangers. I mean, what's it got to do with anybody else? I suppose you're a nuisance in a crowded subway train, but no, I've never bothered about my weight. I've never bothered what I ate. I've never taken any exercise. I've never tried to improve my appearance from within. So I think I'm comfortable with myself, and what alterations I make, I apply from the outside. I used to dye my hair, I wear makeup, I used to wear nail varnish and so on. So I did care about my appearance, and I changed it from the outside. Yes, I was vain. I think the difference between being vain and being conceited is if you're conceited, you think you're better than other people. If you're vain, you are, vanity of vanities, all is vanity, saith the preacher. That was only emptiness. You see, vanity originally only meant a concern with empty, superficial things. Now it means a concern with your appearance. But I think I am vain, I am concerned with my appearance, but chiefly now for the sake of the world. The world, I think, wishes to see me looking the way I do look, because they like you to be the same. If people feel they can predict you, they feel they own you. And if they feel they own you, they start to like you. My hair is not long enough to cover my head, and if the wind blew, my hair would point in all directions of the compass. So I always wear a hat. And now that's become the part of my image. Marlene Dietrich was the first person I heard use image in the American sense. She said, "I dress for the image." And she did. She dressed to please people. She was exotic. My appearance is very much a part of the way I am. What is the most important thing in my life? Myself. Oh, yes? Hello? I'm fine. Oh. Oh, Lord. Who have you judged? Oh. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Yes, I shall come. That's right. No, I eat anything. No, when I'm by myself I drink whiskey, but I'll drink champagne. That's right. Lovely. I'll try. Goodbye.